The Riverlands greeted them with smoke. Not the clean smoke of hearths and cooking fires, but the sour, choking kind that clung to hair and cloth and made a man taste ashes when he breathed. The King's Road dipped toward a shallow stream, and beyond it the trees opened onto a hamlet that should have been waking. Goats bleating, children running, a woman shouting at a lazy husband. Instead there was only ruin, the black ribs of cottages jutting up from gray slush, and a wind that carried the stink of burnt thatch and something worse. Robert reined in hard enough that his warhorse snorted and stamped. The column behind him slowed, men murmuring, heads turning. Stark guards tightened their ring around the royal children without being told. They had learned, already, that danger could arrive wearing no banner. Small folk stumbled from behind a fallen cart, faces smeared with soot, eyes raw and red. A woman knelt in the mud as if her knees had forgotten how to do anything else. A boy clutched a broken doll to his chest. Its head melted into a shapeless lump. Robert stared at them, and Eddard saw the shift in him. Fury finding a new shape, anger turning outward where it had been turned inward for too long. Who did this? Robert demanded. No one answered at first. The small folk looked at the armored men, at the stag on Robert's breast, at the dire wolf on Eddard's cloak, and their fear tangled with confusion. They had lived their lives under lords and taxes, under peace that was never truly peace. A king on the road was not comfort to them. It was a sign that comfort had failed. An old man finally scraped his throat and forced out words. "Riders," he croaked. "Black armor. Big as a—" He swallowed, eyes flicking to Robert's hammer at his saddle. "They came at night." Eddard's stomach tightened. He did not need the name spoken to hear it. Robert's voice was low. "Lannister," he said, and it was not a question. The old man's eyes darted away. I saw red," he whispered. "And gold." They laughed. He gagged, and the sound was wet. "They took my daughter." Robert's face contorted. For a heartbeat, Eddard thought he might dismount and smash something simply because he needed impact, needed a target that was not memory. Instead, Robert looked at the smoking ruins and breathed in hard, as if dragging rage into his lungs. "My peace," Robert muttered. "My realm." Eddard guided his horse closer to the kneeling woman. "Where did they ride?" he asked gently. The woman lifted her face, and Eddard saw a bruise blooming along her cheek, purple under soot. "South," she whispered. "Toward the river. Toward." A rider came hard from the opposite direction, mud flying from his horse's hooves. He wore the blue and red of House Tully, the trout stitched into his cloak, but his cloak was torn and stained. He nearly fell from the saddle when he reached them, catching himself only by gripping the pommel with shaking hands. "In the king's name," he began, then swallowed as he saw Robert's face and seemed to remember how to breathe. "Your Grace." "Sir." "My lord." His eyes went to Eddard, desperate. "Riverrun calls. The Riverlands burn. The mountain rides again." Robert's gaze sharpened. "The mountain," he said, and the words were thick with recognition. Every story he had heard of Gregor Clegane was a story of violence that took more than it needed. The rider panted.
"Village torched."
"Men butchered. Women taken. Edmure Tully gathers what he can, but—" He looked at Robert and fear flashed. "They say Lord Tywin has loosed his dogs." Robert's hand tightened on the reins until the leather creaked. He looked at the small folk huddled in mud, at the charred beams, at the boy with the melted doll. Then his gaze flicked, briefly, toward the guarded cluster where Myrcella held Tommen close, and Joffrey watched the destruction with a face too calm. Eddard saw the calculation behind Robert's anger, and it chilled him. Robert wanted the world to offer him a clean enemy again. Here it was fire and steel cruelty he could hit. "Then we ride to Riverrun," Robert said. Eddard's breath caught. "Robert, we ride," Robert repeated, louder, and the decision rang like a hammer strike. "Tywin wants the realm to bleed? Fine. I will meet his blood with mine." The small folk watched them with hollow eyes, as if kings deciding war was simply another weather pattern to endure. Eddard looked at the smoldering hamlet one last time and felt a bitter truth settle in him. The war had already started. All that remained was deciding where it would swallow them first. Riverrun was not a city, but it was a fortress that breathed like one. Even before they reached its walls, Eddard could see the movement. Men streaming in from roads and fields, banners snapping in the wind, wagons loaded with grain, arrows, fear. The castle sat where the rivers met like clasped hands, water running cold and fast along its moats, and for once the water felt like mercy. Fire struggled to cross rivers. Men did not. Inside, the great hall boiled with noise. Edmure Tully paced like a man whose skin had been replaced with nettles. His cheeks were flushed, his eyes bright with exhaustion, and when he saw Robert enter with Eddard at his side, relief flashed across his face so quickly it looked like pain. "Your Grace," Edmure said, dropping to one knee, then rising at once as if kneeling too long would make him weaker. "Thank the gods you came." "Thank no gods," Robert growled. "Thank Tywin Lannister for reminding me how to be king." Brynden Tully stood near the dais, lean and hard, his Blackfish badge stark against his cloak. He did not kneel. He simply inclined his head toward Robert, eyes sharp, measuring. This was a man who had lived long enough to know that kings were still men under their crowns. "The Riverlands burn," Brynden said flatly. Robert's gaze swept the hall. River lords with haunted faces, knights with soot on their boots, men who had ridden all night with news too ugly to speak softly. "I smelled it," Robert said. Edmure slammed a parchment onto the table. Blood had dried on the edge of it where someone's hand had pressed too hard. "They struck here, here, and here," Edmure said, stabbing at the map spread beneath his fists. "They are testing us, driving us like cattle. If we ride out to stop one raid, they burn another village behind us." Eddard leaned over the map. The black marks clustered like disease. "Clegane," he said. "Aye," Brynden replied, "and men with him. Some wear no colors, but their steel shines like Lannister coin." Robert's jaw worked. "Tywin sends his monster to do his talking," he said. "Then I will answer in the only tongue that monster knows." Edmure's voice broke, and the break was not weakness. It was rage turning raw. "He took my people," he said. "He left children nailed to doors. They want us to beg." Robert's eyes flashed. "No one begs Tywin Lannister," he snarled. "Not while I breathe." The hall quieted, every ear leaning toward the king, because kings were dangerous, and danger drew attention. Eddard felt the weight of responsibility settle sharper. "We must move carefully," he said, and the word tasted like a sin in this hall of burned names. "If we chase Clegane blind, we walk into Tywin's design. He wants the king drawn out, separated, vulnerable." Robert's laugh was harsh. "I am always vulnerable," he said. "I am vulnerable every time I close my eyes with a crown on my head. I am vulnerable every time a lion looks at me and smiles." Brynden's eyes narrowed. "The Queen Trave. Ls with you," he said quietly. Robert's mouth tightened. "Yes, and the children," Brynden added, and his gaze flicked toward the doors where guards waited beyond, keeping the royal prisoners out of sight. "That is a chain Tywin will yank." Eddard watched Robert's face tighten at the mention of the children. The king's fury was a storm, but storms could be steered by pain. Edmure leaned forward, voice urgent. "Give me leave, your grace," he said. "Let me ride. Let me take men and meet them in the field." Robert's eyes gleamed. "And if Clegane kills you?" he asked. "If Tywin takes your head and sends it to me wrapped in trout scales?" Edmure's jaw clenched. "Then I die as a lord should," he said, "not hiding behind walls while my people burn." Brynden's voice was quieter, colder. "Walls are not hiding," he said. "Walls are strategy, and strategy is what Tywin understands." Eddard nodded slightly. "We need scouts," he said. "We need to know where Clegane rides. We need to cut his escape, not chase his shadow." Robert stared at the map, and for a moment Eddard saw him thinking, truly thinking like the warrior he had once been. Then Robert's gaze lifted, hard with decision. "I will ride," Robert said. The hall stirred, a ripple of shock. Edmure's eyes widened. Bryndon's mouth tightened. Eddard stepped closer, voice low. "Robert," he warned. "I am the king," Robert snapped. "If I hide behind walls while Tywin burns my land, I deserve to be called what he will call me." His fist struck the table. "Clegane is a dog. Dogs can be baited. We will bait him." Bryndon's eyes narrowed further. "With what?" he asked. Robert's gaze flicked, briefly, toward the guarded doors again. "With what Tywin wants," Robert said softly. "With the king himself." Eddard felt a cold pulse of dread. Tywin would not refuse that bait, and bait caught fish as often as it caught sharks. Cersei learned of Riverrun's name before she saw its walls, because men spoke more freely than they realized. Even shackled, even guarded, she listened. She listened to the clink of armor outside her litter, to the murmurs of soldiers, to the way their voices changed when they thought the king could hear. She listened the way some women prayed, because listening was the closest thing to power left when your hands were bound. They kept her in a covered litter in Riverrun's yard, the curtains drawn, chains hidden beneath a cloak so the small folk would not see their queen treated like a thief. The pretense was thin and pointless, but men loved pretense. It let them pretend their sins were civilized. Cersei sat straight-backed on the litter's cushions as if she were seated on a throne. Her wrists were raw where iron rubbed. She did not show it. She did not give the guards the satisfaction. A shadow fell at the curtain, and a familiar voice slid in, sharp with poison. "Mother!" Cersei's eyes narrowed, then softened just enough to seem maternal. "Joffrey," she said, as if she had been expecting him, as if she were not trapped. "They let you near me." Joffrey pushed the curtain aside just enough to slip his face through. His cheeks were flushed from cold and rage. His eyes, those bright, cruel eyes, burned like coals. "They think I am harmless," he hissed. Cersei studied him. He was too young to be a man, too old to be innocent. There were moments when she saw Jaime in his face, and those moments were knives now. "They treat you like a prisoner," Joffrey snarled. "They treat me like a prince who has misbehaved," Cersei finished calmly. "Which you have." Joffrey's lip curled. "He struck me," he spat. "He dragged me like a dog." Cersei's fingers tightened beneath her cloak. "Robert Baratheon is a brute," she murmured. "You knew that." Joffrey leaned closer, voice dropping. "He killed Uncle Jaime," he whispered, and the whisper shook with something that might have been grief, but was more likely fury at losing what had belonged to him. Cersei held his gaze. She did not blink. "Yes," she said softly. "He did." Joffrey's breath hitched. "Then I want him dead," he said, and the childish simplicity of it was terrifying because it was so pure. Cersei's mouth curved faintly. "Wanting is easy," she said. "Achieving is harder." Joffrey's eyes glittered. "Tell me how," he demanded. Cersei watched him for a long moment, measuring. In another life, she might have tried to keep him softer, keep him safer. That life was ash now, like the villages burning along the Trident. Safety belonged to no one, not even children. "You do not strike a king openly," she said softly. "You do not announce your hatred. You let men think you are broken." She tilted her head. "Can you pretend to be broken, Joffrey?" His jaw clenched. "No," he spat. Cersei's smile thinned. "Then learn," she said. A small sound came from behind him, soft, trembling. Myrcella stepped into view. Tommen clutched to her side. Myrcella's eyes were wet. Tommen's face was pinched with fear. "Mother," Myrcella whispered. "Please." Cersei's gaze shifted to her daughter, and something in her chest tightened. Not gentleness, but possession, fierce and sharp. "Myrcella," she said, and the name came out softer than she intended. Myrcella swallowed. "They say we cannot stay with you," she whispered. They say you are dangerous." Cersei's laugh was quiet. "They are right," she said. Myrcella flinched. Tommen began to cry, silent at first, then harder, his shoulders shaking. Cersei leaned forward as far as chains allowed, reaching out to touch Tommen's hair through the curtain gap. Her fingers brushed his curls briefly. The touch was almost gentle. "Do not cry," she said, voice low. "Tears are for people who believe someone will rescue them." Tommen's sob caught. He stared at her with wide eyes, as if trying to understand why comfort sounded like warning. Joffrey looked between them, impatient. "We need men," he hissed. "We need grandfather. We need time." Cersei cut in, and her voice snapped like a whip. "Time and leverage. Your grandfather will move because he must, but he will not move the way you want. He will move the way he chooses." Joffrey's eyes narrowed. "He will make me king," he said, as if it were a certainty that could not be shaken. Cersei's smile returned, slow and dangerous. "If Robert dies," she said softly, "the realm will tear itself apart. Stannis will claim the throne. Renly will smile and steal half the lords. The wolves will howl." She leaned closer to Joffrey, green eyes bright. "In that chaos, crowns can be taken." Joffrey's breath quickened. "So we kill him," he whispered. Cersei's gaze flicked, briefly, to the guards outside. Two stark men standing rigid, pretending they could not hear. She lowered her voice further. "Not with your hands," she said. "Not with mine. With someone who believes they are saving the realm." Joffrey frowned. "Who?" Cersei's smile did not answer. She had names in her mind. Names that could be bought, names that could be frightened, names that hated Robert for reasons that had nothing to do with Lannisters. Men were always eager to believe their violence was righteous. Myrcella's voice trembled. "Mother, will we go home?" Cersei looked at her daughter, and the answer was fire. "Home will come to us," she said softly. "One way or another." A shout echoed in the yard beyond the litter. Orders. Movement. The sound of men preparing to ride. Cersei watched Joffrey's face as he listened too, and she saw his hatred sharpen into excitement. "Remember," she whispered to him as the curtain began to fall back into place. "You are a lion. Lions do not beg. Lions wait. And when they strike, they do not miss." Joffrey's eyes gleamed, and he slipped away, leaving Myrcella and Tommen staring after him like children watching a storm gather. Cersei sat back and the litter's shadow, chains cold against her wrists, and smiled to herself. Robert Baratheon thought he held her in a box. He did not understand that boxes could be used to hide knives. Brynden Tully did not argue with Robert the way lesser men did. Loudly, pleading, hoping volume would move a king's will. He argued like a soldier, with terrain, with numbers, with the cold arithmetic of survival. In Riverrun's armory, torches smoked against stone, and the air smelled of oil and old iron. Men moved in practiced rhythm, buckling mail, tightening straps, checking blades. The sound of preparation was steady, almost soothing, because preparation gave the illusion that war could be controlled. Brynden laid a map across a work table and held it down with a dagger. "Clegane rides along these lanes," he said, tapping with the dagger tip. "He burns here, then here. He is fast, but he is not careful. He does not fear being caught." Robert strapped his hammer belt on with rough movements, jaw clenched. "He should fear," Robert said. "He doesn't," Brynden replied, "because he believes you will chase him like a bull chasing a torch. And if you do, he will lead you where Tywin wants." Eddard stood nearby, arms folded, watching Robert's face. "Brynden is right," he said quietly. "If you ride out with the king at the head, every man with a coin in his pocket will know where you are." Robert snorted. "Let them know," he growled. "Let them come." Brynden's eyes narrowed. "You are not invincible," he said bluntly. "Your hammer does not stop arrows." Robert's gaze snapped to him. "My hammer stops men," he said. "Arrows are not men," Brynden replied. The tension in the room tightened. A lesser lord might have flinched at speaking to the king like that. Brynden did not. He had lived too long. and he had watched too many young men die because older men had been too polite. Eddard stepped closer, voice low. "Robert," he said, "if you fall, everything falls. The queen, the children, the realm. Stannis will take the throne, and Tywin will claim you were murdered by wolves." He held Robert's gaze. "You cannot give him that story." Robert's breath came harsh. For a moment, the bravado faltered, and Eddard saw the truth beneath. Robert was terrified, not of dying, but of dying as a fool. "I won't hide," Robert said, voice rough. "I won't cower behind walls while peasants burn." "No one is asking you to cower," Brynden said. "We are asking you to bait." He dragged the dagger tip along the map. "We send a smaller force, a patrol that looks fat enough to tempt Clegane, but not so valuable that Tywin's whole host comes down on it." His eyes lifted. "And you?" Robert's eyes narrowed. "And I what?" Brynden's voice was steady. "You stay within reach," he said. "Close enough to strike when the trap is sprung. Far enough that the first arrow does not find your throat." Robert's jaw worked. He hated it. Eddard could see him hating it the way a wolf hates a leash. But he listened, and that alone felt like a miracle. Eddard leaned over the map. "We need men who can ride fast," he said. "And we need men who can hold a line when Clegane charges." Brynden's mouth tightened. "The Blackfish can hold lines," he said. "So can my men. But we must choose the ground. Not open field. Not where cavalry can break us like reeds." Robert's gaze flicked to the dagger marking a narrow lane between woods and river. "There," Robert said, voice low. Brynden nodded once. "There," he agreed. Robert flexed his hands on the hammer haft, feeling the familiar weight. "I will break him," Robert murmured. Eddard's voice was quiet. "Break him," he said, "and live." Robert's eyes flashed, and for a moment Eddard saw the old warrior again. The one who had charged Rhaegar without hesitation. The one who had believed the world could be solved by striking hard enough. Now that belief was all he had left, because everything else had been poisoned. Outside the armory, horns sounded short blasts, orders passing through the castle like blood through veins. Men mounted, gates opened. The Riverlands had called its king. Now the king rode to answer. Twilight bled across the Riverlands like a bruise. They chose the lane where the map's dagger had pointed, tight between a hedgerow and the riverbank, where the ground dipped and turned so that riders could not see what waited beyond the bend. River mist clung low, and reeds hissed in the wind. The air smelled wet and cold, hiding the sharper stink of men waiting with steel. Brynden positioned his footmen behind the hedges, spears angled, bows knocked. They were not knights with shining armor and songs. They were farmers with calloused hands, men pressed into service by necessity and fear. Their eyes were wide, their breath steaming, their fingers white on spear shafts. Robert waited in a copse with Eddard at his side, cloaks pulled tight, hammer held low. The king's face was hard in the half-light, his eyes fixed on the bend. He looked like a man listening for a beast in the dark. "Once they enter," Brynden had said, "we close the jaws. Do not charge too soon." Robert had grunted, which was as close to agreement as he could manage. They waited. Time stretched thin. Insects were silent in the cold. Water slid past, whispering like a secret. Somewhere far off, an owl called, and the sound made one of the spearmen flinch. Then torchlight flickered at the bend. Hoofs struck mud. Men laughed. The laughter was loud, careless, cruel. Men who had burned villages and still had breath to joke. Rhaegar Clegane's riders came first, a cluster of mounted men, some in mail, some in leather, faces shadowed beneath helms. Their torches threw light across the lane in jittering pulses. Their horses snorted, uneasy, sensing the wrongness. And then Rhaegar Clegane entered the lane. He rode like a moving wall, black armor swallowing torchlight, his horse massive beneath him, its eyes rolling white. The helm on his head made him less human, more thing, an engine of violence given direction. He carried a great sword across his saddle, and even resting, it looked too heavy for sane men. Robert's breath changed. Eddard heard it, the slight intake, the tightening. The king's fingers flexed on the hammer haft. "Wait!" Eddard whispered. Robert did not answer. His gaze was locked on Gregor. The riders moved deeper into the lane, torches bobbing, laughter fading as the tight walls of hedge and river pressed them. One rider spat into the mud. Another cursed the damp. Bryndon's hand lifted on the low rise, a signal held suspended. The riders reached the narrowest part of the lane. Bryndon's hand dropped. The world erupted. Arrows hissed from the hedges, slamming into leather and mail. A horse screamed, rearing, throwing its rider into the mud. Spears thrust up from concealment like teeth. Men shouted, voices spiking with panic as they realized they had ridden into a throat. Gregor Clegane's horse screamed too, not from pain. An arrow glanced off his armor, but from the sudden crush of bodies around it. Gregor turned his helm toward the hedgerow, and even through Met, Eddard could feel the focus of his rage. The mountain did not retreat. He surged forward, forcing his horse through the narrow lane, trampling a fallen rider without hesitation. His greatsword came up in one brutal arc, cleaving a spearman who had stepped too far into the open. The man split like wet cloth, blood spraying onto reeds. Robert's muscles coiled. "Now," Eddard hissed, because if they waited longer, the trap would become a slaughter of their own men. Robert exploded from the copse. He charged into the lane with his hammer raised, cloak snapping behind him. Riverland men shouted his name, half in awe, half in terror. The king's presence was a bell rung in the middle of battle, loud, undeniable, drawing every eye. Gregor Clegane turned his helm toward Robert. For a heartbeat, the lane held its breath. Then the two forces collided. Robert's hammer smashed into the side of Gregor's horse, cracking bone. The beast screamed and stumbled. Gregor's greatsword swung down, but Robert twisted aside, the blade carving sparks from a spear shaft instead of his skull. Eddard pushed into the lane behind him, sword drawn, shouting orders, trying to keep their men from breaking under the mountain's sheer brutality. He saw a rider crawl through mud with arrows in his back. He saw a Riverland boy, no older than Bran, stab at a Lannister man and get his throat open for it. Robert swung again, hammer whistling through air, and this time it struck Gregor's leg, denting plate, driving the giant sideways. Gregor roared, a deep, animal sound that filled the lane. The mountain did not fall. He turned, and his greatsword came in a horizontal sweep meant to cut Robert in half. Robert blocked with the hammer haft, the impact jarring his arms. Eddard heard the wood groan. "Robert!" Eddard shouted, pushing forward, but bodies clogged the lane, horses thrashing, men screaming. Robert's face was twisted with effort and fury. He drove his shoulder into Gregor's chest, shoving him back, and the king's breath came in ragged bursts. "Die," Robert snarled, and the word was not only for Gregor, it was for every lion, every betrayal, every laugh. Gregor's helm tilted. Through the narrow eye slits, Eddard imagined cold rage. The mountain's sword rose again, and somewhere in the crush, an arrow flew, silent, indifferent, loosed by a hand that did not care who wore a crown. The arrow hit with a dull, sickening thud, not deep enough to drop Robert instantly, not clean enough to be ignored. It struck near the shoulder, close to the thick cord of muscle above the collarbone, and Robert's roar tore the air as pain and rage fused into one. Eddard saw the shaft trembling, saw the blood begin to bead and run, dark and quick beneath torchlight. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to that single line of wood and feather in the king's flesh. Gregor Clegane's greatsword came down. Eddard threw himself forward, ice raised, and steel met steel with a scream that set teeth on edge. The impact drove Eddard back a step, his arms shuddering, but it stopped the blade from splitting Robert's skull. Robert staggered, breath coming in harsh bursts. His hand reached for the arrow as if he meant to tear it out by pure will, then clenched into a fist instead. He raised his hammer again, one-handed now, the other arm stiffening with pain. "Kill him," Robert bellowed, and the command was raw, desperate. Men surged, spears stabbed, arrows hissed. The lane became a meat grinder of bodies and hooves. Gregor roared, swinging his great sword in broad arcs that made men scatter or die. A Riverland knight tried to charge him. Gregor's blade took the horse's head clean off, and the rider went tumbling into mud, screaming until a boot crushed his throat. Eddard forced himself to focus. "Hold!" he shouted. "Hold the line!" But lines were hard to hold in a lane slick with blood. Bryndon's voice cut through from the rise, sharp as a whip. "Bows! Bows on the mountain! Bring him down!" Arrows peppered Gregor's armor. Most glanced off. One struck near the joint beneath his arm. Gregor snarled and swatted at it as if it were an insect. Another arrow found a gap at his thigh, and this time he grunted, staggered half a step. Blood seeped, dark against black plate. Robert saw it and surged like a wounded bear, hammer rising. He smashed the hammer into Gregor's wounded thigh, and even through armor, the impact was brutal. Gregor's leg buckled. For the first time, the mountain looked almost mortal. Then he grabbed Robert. One gauntlet hand seized Robert's cloak and dragged him in close, yanking the king off balance. The greatsword lifted, poised for a killing blow. Eddard lunged, ice slashing toward Gregor's arm. The Valyrian steel bit into plate and flesh, carving a red line. Gregor roared, releasing Robert only to swing blindly at Eddard. Eddard ducked, the blade passing inches above his head, slicing torch smoke. He drove ice forward again, aiming for the neck gap. Gregor twisted, and the steel struck the edge of his helm instead, ringing like a bell. Robert fell to one knee in the mud, arrow still in his shoulder, breath ragged. He looked up at Gregor with eyes full of pure hatred. Gregor raised his sword again, this time not at Eddard, but at Robert. A Riverland spearman, young, shaking, thrust his spear into Gregor's side. The point slee, D between plates. Gregor turned his helm slowly toward the boy, as if curious. Then Gregor's gauntlet closed around the spear shaft and snapped it in half with one hand. He backhanded the boy. The boy's neck broke. He fell without sound. Robert's face twisted, and Eddard saw something dangerous. Robert's pain, Robert's rage, Robert's love of smashing problems into silence. The king pushed himself up, ignoring the arrow, ignoring the blood. He raised the hammer high. "For Winterfell," someone shouted, and the shout was wrong, but it did not matter. In war, words became whatever men needed. Robert brought the hammer down on Gregor's helm. The impact rang through the lane. Gregor's head snapped sideways. The greatsword dipped. Robert struck again, and this time the hammer dented the helm enough that it looked like the metal itself had flinched. Gregor staggered back a step, and men surged, stabbing, hacking, desperate to finish what the king began. But the mountain did not fall neatly. He swung his greatsword in a wild arc, clearing space, killing two men at once. He backed toward the bend, toward escape, toward the open ground beyond the trap. Brynden shouted for men to cut him off. Horses screamed. Torches fell into mud and sputtered out. Eddard grabbed Robert's arm, trying to pull him back, trying to keep him from chasing a monster into darkness. "Robert, stop," he hissed. "You're bleeding." Robert jerked away, eyes wild. "He bleeds too," he snarled. "He bleeds because of me." Eddard felt a flash of cold terror. Not of the mountain, not even of Tywin, but of the king's own stubbornness. Robert would chase this victory like a drunk chasing another cup, and he would not see the knife until it was in him. Gregor Clegane slipped backward into the bend, dragging wounded men with him, leaving behind a lane full of corpses and mud and the bitter stench of blood. The trap had hurt him. It had not killed him. And Robert Baratheon was wounded now, too, wounded in flesh and already more dangerous for it. They brought Robert back to Riverrun under a sky that felt too low. The king refused a litter. He rode with the arrow still in his shoulder, teeth clenched, jaw set, blood seeping into his cloak. He looked like a man trying to prove something to pain itself. In a chamber lit by a single brazier, They cut his shirt away and sat him on the bed. A healer, one of Riverrun's men, hand steady, braced the arrow shaft. Robert stared at the wall, breathing hard, refusing to flinch. Eddard stood close enough to catch the king if he fell. Brynden watched from the corner, silent, eyes sharp. The warhammer leaned against the bed like a threat that would never go away. "This will hurt," the healer murmured. Robert laughed. "Thin. Everything hurts," he said. The healer pulled. Robert's hands clamped on the bed frame. Muscles bunched along his neck. He made a sound that was half growl, half prayer, and then the arrow came free with a wet snap. Blood surged. The healer pressed cloth hard, working fast. Robert exhaled like a man released from drowning. Sweat shone on his brow. His face was pale beneath the beard. Eddard's voice was low. "You nearly died," he said. Robert turned his head slightly, eyes bloodshot. "Not today," he rasped. Eddard leaned closer. "Tywin wants you dead," he said. "He will not stop. If he cannot reach you with Clegane, he will reach you with gold. With knives. With poison." Robert's mouth twisted. "Let him try," he muttered. Brynden's voice cut in cold and practical. "He already did," he said. "That arrow was not Clegane's. Clegane would have charged you, not sniped you. Someone loosed that from the hedges." Eddard's stomach tightened. "One of ours?" he asked. Brynden's eyes were bleak. "Or one of his who wore no colors," he said. "Either way, someone wanted the king bleeding." Robert's gaze sharpened, and for a moment Eddard saw something like clarity in him. Pain stripping away the drunken haze. "Find him," Robert said softly. Eddard nodded once. "We will," he said, though he knew how hard it would be. In war, arrows flew and men died, and the hand that loosed it vanished into mud. The healer finished bandaging, hands stained red. "You must rest," he said, voice careful. "If the wound." Robert's laugh was bitter. "Rest," he repeated, "while my land burns." Eddard's jaw clenched. "Your land will burn more if you die," he said. Robert stared at him, and the stare held something raw, resentment, gratitude, rage at needing Eddard's steadiness. "You always speak like a maester," Robert muttered, "as if words can stitch wounds." "Words can keep men from making worse wounds," Eddard said. Robert's gaze drifted to the hammer leaning against the bed. "That hammer stitched Jaime?" he whispered, and the whisper was ugly, full of memory. Eddard's throat tightened. "Do not say his name," he said quietly. Robert's eyes snapped to him, fury flaring. "Why?" he snarled. "Because it makes you uncomfortable? Because you want to pretend?" I didn't do it. I did it, Ned. I did it. I felt his skull." "Enough," Eddard said, voice sharp. "You will drown in that if you let it." Robert's breath came hard. He looked away, swallowing. When he spoke again, his voice was smaller. "I thought it would make it stop," he whispered. "I thought if I killed him, the laughter would stop." Eddard's voice softened, but only slightly. "It will not stop," he said. "Tywin will make it louder." Robert's jaw worked. His eyes glistened. "Then I will make Tywin choke on it," he said, and the words were not bravado now. They were vow. Brynden stepped closer, gaze fixed on Robert. "You wounded the mountain," he said. "That will spread. Men will talk. Some will take heart." His eyes narrowed. "But Tywin will answer harder." Robert's face hardened again. "Good," he growled. "Let him." A knock sounded at the door. A Riverrun guard entered, face pale. "My lords," he said, voice tight. "A message from King's Landing." Eddard's heart sank. Messages from King's Landing were never simple, never safe. Robert held out a hand. "Give it," he demanded. The guard hesitated, eyes flicking to Eddard. Eddard nodded once. The message was placed in Robert's hand. Robert broke the seal with fingers still stained by his own blood. And as Robert read, Eddard watched the king's face change, and he felt the cold certainty that the war outside was only half of what would kill them. Renly Baratheon did not wait for his brother to come home. He smiled in public. He laughed at court. He made little jokes about northern cold and southern warmth, about how the king would return with a direwolf pup and demand everyone in King's Landing pet it. Men laughed because laughter was easier than fear. At night, Renly moved. He gathered the Tyrells not in the small council chamber where walls had ears, but in a private room where the tapestry muffled sound. Mace Tyrell sat heavily, fingers thick with rings. Marjorie Tyrell stood near the window, gaze calm and bright, watching the city lights as if reading them. Loras Tyrell lingered close, posture taut, eyes flicking to Renly with devotion that was too sharp to hide. Varys was there too, of course, because Varys was always there when secrets were being born. Renly poured wine with a steady hand. "My brother has done something extraordinary," he said, and his smile did not reach his eyes. Mace grunted. "Extraordinary," he echoed. "He killed the Kingslayer." Renly's mouth tightened. "In Winterfell," he said softly, "in front of half the North, with a hammer. And now Tywin Lannister burns the Riverlands." He leaned forward slightly. "The realm will demand stability." Mace's brows furrowed. "Stability," he repeated, hopeful, because hopeful men were easier to steer. Marjorie's voice was smooth. "And you would offer it," she said. Renly looked at her, and for a heartbeat he allowed himself to admire her. How quickly she understood the shape of power. "I would," he admitted, "but only if the realm gives me room." Loras's eyes flashed. "You are the king's brother," he said. "The realm should kneel." Renly's smile turned faintly sad. "The realm kneels to strength," he said, "not to blood alone. Stannis will claim the throne by law the moment Robert coughs wrong. And Stannis..." Renly's lips curled. "Stannis will strangle the realm in duty." Mace shifted, uneasy. "Robert is still alive," he said. "Surely he..." Renly cut in, voice gentle and deadly. "Robert is bleeding," he said. "In the Riverlands, if the ravens are true. And even if he lives, he has shattered the one thing that kept men from whispering. Certainty." He held up a hand, counting on fingers. "A dead Kingsguard, a queen in chains, children whose blood is questioned, a lion loosed, a brother with a claim." Marjorie tilted her head. "And you," she said. Renly met her gaze. "And me," he said softly. Varys's voice drifted in like silk. "The realm does so enjoy a handsome solution," he murmured. Renly ignored him. "If Robert returns," Renly continued, "the city will riot. Half the lords will choose sides before he even reaches the gates. Someone must be ready to steady the realm." His gaze flicked to Marjorie. "A new marriage would steady it." Mace's eyes widened. He looked like a man who had been handed a crown in a box. "You propose." Renly's smile returned, bright and practiced. "I propose nothing," he lied smoothly. "I merely observe what the realm will want. A king who can be loved, a queen who can be adored, a future not poisoned by Lannister sins." Marjorie's gaze did not waver. "And if Robert lives," she asked softly, "does he take me or do you?" Renly's smile faltered for a heartbeat. Then he recovered. "If Robert lives, he will need allies," he said. "He will need a new queen to bury the old scandal." His eyes sharpened. "And if Robert dies..." He let the words hang because they did not need finishing. Loras's hand tightened at his side, knuckles white. Mace swallowed, then nodded slowly. "We have men," he said. "Gold, grain. The Reach can feed the realm. The Reach can. The Reach can decide who wears the crown." Marjorie finished quietly, and her voice was calm because she was not frightened by that truth. She was built for it. Renly lifted his cup. "Then we are in agreement," he said softly. "We prepare, quietly." Varys watched them all with sad eyes, as if seeing the blood that would follow. "Quiet preparations often make the loudest wars," he murmured. Renly smiled at him. "That is why we prepare," he said. Outside the Red Keep, King's Landing glittered, ignorant and hungry. In the streets, Men already whispered the queen's name with venom. In taverns, men already argued about whether the king had finally gone mad. And in a private room behind a tapestry, Renly Baratheon began to lay the foundation for a future that would require his brother to fall. Stannis Baratheon wrote as if words were weapons. On Dragonstone, candlelight made hard shadows of his face, emphasizing every line of sternness and stubbornness. His quill scratched across parchment with relentless pace. Davos Seaworth stood nearby, silent, watching the letters pile. Sealed for great houses, sealed for lords who would read and decide whether to follow law or fear. "Will they listen?" Davos asked finally, voice low. Stannis did not look up. "They will," he said. Davos swallowed. "Some will," he corrected gently. "Some will pretend not to. Some will choose Renly because he smiles, or Tywin because he pays." Stannis's quill paused. His jaw tightened. "Then they will be traitors," he said. Davos exhaled. He had served lords before. He had served criminals. Stannis was different, clean in a way that could cut a man. Melisandre stood near the brazier, hands folded, eyes glinting. The firelight painted her cheeks in red, making her look carved from flame. "They will listen when the sea rises," she murmured. "When the stag falls, when the true king is crowned." Stannis's eyes snapped up hard. "Enough," he said. "I did not summon you to recite prophecy." Melisandre's smile was soft. "You did not need to summon me," she replied. "The flames summon me." Davos shifted, uncomfortable. He looked at the sealed letters. "What do you write them?" he asked Stannis, clinging to practical things. Stannis's gaze returned to the parchment. "The truth," he said. Davos's stomach tightened. "All of it?" he asked, because he could not help it. Stannis's mouth tightened. "Enough," he said. "Jaime Lannister was executed for treason. Cersei Lannister is held. The children's parentage is in question." His eyes narrowed. "And if Robert Baratheon has wounded himself so badly that he cannot rule, then the realm must be prepared for succession." Davos rubbed a thumb over the stump where fingertips had been. "Robert is still alive," he said, voice thick. "He is your brother." Stannis's eyes were cold, but something flickered deep beneath, a wound that never healed. "If he is alive, he will return to King's Landing and do what is required," Stannis said. "If he is not, I will." Melisandre stepped closer, voice soft as smoke. "He will die," she whispered. "Not by your hand, not by Tywin's, but by shadow and sorrow." Davos's hand moved toward his knife again before he caught himself. "Stop," he hissed. "Stop speaking death like it is weather." Melisandre's gaze slid to him, amused. "For kings it is weather," she said. Stannis's jaw clenched. He dipped his quill again, writing faster, as if speed could outrun omen. "The realm will drown in lies if no one speaks," he said. "I will speak." He sealed the last letter with wax, pressing his signet hard enough to leave a deep imprint. "Send them," he ordered Davos, "to Storm's End, to the Vale, to the Riverlands, to the north." His eyes narrowed. "To Eddard Stark." Davos hesitated. "Eddard Street. Ark stands with Robert," he said. Stannis's gaze was flint. "Eddard Stark stands with honor," he said. "Honor will pull him toward the truth whether he wishes it or not." Davos took the letters, feeling their weight. "And if honor breaks?" he asked softly. Stannis's voice was cold. "Then the realm breaks," he said. Outside, waves crashed against Dragonstone's rocks, relentless, patient. Davos carried the letters toward the rookery, and he felt as if he were carrying sparks into a room full of dry straw. Robert read the message from King's Landing twice, then crumpled it in his fist as if crushing paper could crush reality. Eddard stood across the table in Riverrun's war room, the map spread between them, the black marks of burned villages looking like rot. The room was lit by lanterns that threw unsteady light across Robert's bandaged shoulder. The king looked paler than he would admit, but his eyes were bright with fury, pain feeding rage like oil on fire. What do they say? Brynden asked from the side, voice tight. Robert spat into the hearth. They say I am mad, he snarled. They say the North has bewitched me. They say I murdered Jaime without lawful trial. His teeth bared. They say Cersei is kidnapped. They say Tywin rides to save the realm from a tyrant. Eddard's jaw clenched. Tywin's story, he said. Robert's laugh was bitter. And men will believe it, he said. Because it is easier to believe I am mad than to believe a queen has been fucking her brother. Eddard did not flinch at the crudeness. He had no patience left for politeness. We must control the narrative, he said. We must reach King's Landing with Cersei alive and speaking. We must. A knock sounded. A Tully guard entered, carrying another letter. This one sealed with the stag of Dragonstone. Eddard's stomach tightened as he took it. The wax was dark, the imprint deep. Stannis. He broke the seal and read quickly. The words were sharp and cold, as if the parchment itself disapproved of everyone who touched it. Stannis demanded lawful proceedings. He demanded the children be secured. He demanded Cersei be brought to King's Landing for trial. He reminded Robert bluntly of succession. He spoke of duty as if duty were a sword pressed to the realm's throat. Robert saw the seal and snarled. What does my dear brother preach now? He demanded. Eddard handed him the letter. Robert scanned it, eyes moving fast. As he read, his face twisted, not only with anger, but with something like fear. Stannis's words were a mirror Robert did not want held up. He thinks I'm dying, Robert muttered. Eddard's voice was quiet. He is preparing, he said. Robert's fist clenched around the parchment. Preparing to steal my crown, he snapped. Eddard held his gaze. Preparing to claim what the law gives him if you fall, he corrected. And you gave him reason to think you might fall when you charged into that lane. Robert's eyes flashed. So you blame me, he snarled. Eddard's voice stayed steady. I blame Tywin, he said. I blame Cersei. I blame Jaime. I blame every man who thinks the realm is a game. He leaned closer. But I will not pretend you are not making it easier for them. Robert's breath came harsh. He looked down at the map, then at his hammer, then back at Eddard. What do I do? He rasped, and the question sounded too familiar, like a man asking in the gods would, begging for someone else to steer his life. Eddard's heart tightened. You go to King's Landing, he said, but not alone, not reckless. We move with speed and caution both. We keep the queen. We keep the children. We keep you alive. Robert's mouth twisted. Alive, he muttered, so I can sit on a throne while everyone whispers behind my back. Eddard's voice was low. So you can finish what you began, he said. If you die, Tywin wins. If you die, Stannis takes the crown and the realm fractures anyway. If you die, the children become weapons for whichever side grabs them first. Robert's eyes flicked, briefly, toward the door, toward where his children were kept under guard, toward where Cersei waited in chains. His face contorted with pain that was not from the arrow. Then we ride, Robert said, voice rough. Brynden's eyes narrowed. And Clegane? He asked. Robert's gaze hardened. Clegane bleeds, Robert said. Let him run back to Tywin and show him what it costs to burn my land. His voice dropped. I will deal with the lion at the source. Eddard nodded once, though dread sat heavy in his gut. King's Landing was a nest of knives. It was not a battlefield where Robert's hammer could solve everything. It was worse because in King's Landing, the blade that killed you would be called an accident, and the man who paid for it would smile at your funeral. Robert pushed himself up from the chair, wincing as the bandage pulled. He grabbed the hammer as if it were an anchor. We leave at first light, he said. Eddard watched him and felt the weight of the road ahead. Burned villages behind, poisonous court ahead, and between them a queen who was still smiling in the dark. Outside Riverrun's walls, the rivers ran cold and fast, indifferent to kings. Inside, the king made his choice, and somewhere in the Riverlands, Gregor Clegane rode through smoke with blood under his armor. carrying the kings sent back to a master who would not be denied. Riverrun's gates opened like a mouth letting out a curse. The drawbridge thudded down over cold water, and the river beneath ran fast as if it could outrun the war gathering on its banks. Men stood along the parapets with bows in hand, watching the column form and stretch, banners snapping in the wind. Stag and direwolf among trout and lesser sigils, colors braided together by necessity rather than love. Edmure Tully stood at the bridge's head, his face drawn tight. He looked as if he had not slept since the first village burned, as if every report had carved another line into him. Brynden Tully stood beside him like a blade left out in winter, lean, hard, and coldly sure. "You leave us with smoke," Edmure said to Robert, voice strained with the effort of respect. Robert Baratheon sat his horse with his left arm stiff, bandage showing beneath his cloak where the arrow had bitten. The king looked paler than he would admit, but his eyes were bright with a fury that made him seem larger than his wounds. His warhammer hung from his saddle like a promise. "I leave you with a king's command," Robert growled. "Hold the rivers. Gather every man who can lift steel. If Clegane shows his face again, you put it in the mud." Edmure swallowed, nodding too quickly. "Aye," he said. "Aye, your grace." Brynden's gaze flicked over the column, over the Stark guards, the Baratheon men, the litter under heavy watch, the children wrapped in fur and fear. His eyes lingered a fraction too long on the covered shape where Cersei Lannister traveled, and then returned to Robert. "King's Landing is not a field," Brynden said quietly. "Your hammer will not solve it." Robert's mouth twisted. "My hammer solves liars," he said. "King's Landing is full of them." Eddard Stark rode close enough to hear and felt the familiar tightening in his chest. Duty grinding against dread. "We do this quickly," Eddard said, voice low. "We do this cleanly." Robert's laugh was rough. "Clean," he echoed. "Nothing about this is clean, Ned." Edmure stepped forward, boots scraping on wet wood. "If you go," he said, voice cracking with urgency, "leave us something, a word, a banner. The River Lords need to know the crown still holds." Robert's gaze hardened. "Tell them I am coming," he said. "Tell them the lion will choke on his own roar." The words were the kind men wanted, simple, violent, certain. They cheered a little raggedly because cheering felt better than trembling. Eddard watched Edmure's face as the cheering died. Beneath the relief there was the knowledge that the Riverlands would be the anvil on which southern wars were hammered out, no matter who won. The column began to move. The covered litter creaked as it rolled, curtains drawn tight. Cersei Lannister traveled inside like a thorn wrapped in velvet. The guards pretended not to fear her. They failed. Myrcella Baratheon rode within a ring of men, her gloved hands clasped around Tommen Baratheon's as if she could hold him together with her fingers. Tommen's cheeks were red from cold and crying, his eyes wide and lost. Joffrey Baratheon sat straight-backed, silent, staring at Riverrun's walls as if memorizing them for punishment later. As they crossed the bridge, Edmure's voice rose behind them. "Blackfish," he called, and the word was half a plea. Brynden's answer was flat. "I'm here," he said. "Go inside. The river doesn't wait." The drawbridge rose behind the column with a dull groan, cutting Riverrun off from the road like a man shutting a door against a storm. Robert did not look back. He stared south, toward the city that had crowned him and caged him, toward the place where lies were dressed like law. His bandaged shoulder pulled with every step of the horse, but he rode as if pain were simply another thing he could trample. Eddard rode beside him and watched the horizon, where smoke smudged the sky like a bruise that would not fade. Behind them, the Riverlands burned. Ahead of them, King's Landing waited bright, stinking, hungry, and full of hands eager to turn a wounded king into a corpse. The night tried to swallow them whole. They camped off the road in a shallow hollow where trees crowded close, their bare branches tangled like claws. Fires were kept low because light drew eyes, and eyes drew arrows. Men ate in silence, chewing tough meat and harder thoughts, listening to the wind sift through dead leaves like whispered warnings. Robert sat by the central fire with his cloak pulled tight, the warhammer laid across his knees as if he feared sleep might steal it. His shoulder wound oozed through the bandage in dark spots. The king stared into the flames like a man daring them to show him answers. Eddard walked the perimeter twice, then a third time because rest felt like negligence now. He spoke quietly with guards, shifted men, doubled watches. He watched the trees, the road, the black gaps between trunks where anything might move. When the bolt came, it came like a thought, silent, sudden, sharp. A stark guard on the outer ring jerked and fell, a crossbow quarrel buried in his throat. He hit the ground without a sound, hands scrabbling at air, blood bubbling dark in torchlight. Steel sang from scabbards. Men surged up, boots kicking ash, curses breaking the night's hush. Eddard moved on instinct, ice in hand, shouting for silence even as his own voice felt too loud. "Hold!" he barked. "No panic, spread out." Another bolt snapped into a tree trunk, quivering there like a threat left behind on purpose. A third missed entirely, hissing over the camp and vanishing into dark. Eddard saw movement, shadow shifting too smoothly to be wind, and lunged. He tackled a man crouched behind a fallen log, the assassin's hands already scrabbling at a second crossbow. They hit the ground hard. The man smelled of sweat and cheap oil. He fought like a cornered animal, teeth bared, knife flashing. Eddard's forearm caught the knife, pain flaring. He drove his fist into the man's face, felt cartilage crush. The assassin spat blood and tried to twist away. Stark men piled in, dragging him down. "Who sent you?" Eddard demanded, voice low and cold. The assassin's eyes were wild. "The realm," he gasped and laughed, coughing blood. "The realm sent me." A Stark guard wrenched the crossbow away and slammed the man's head into the earth. The assassin went slack, either dead or too broken to speak. Robert rose from the fire like a storm standing up. "What is it?" he snarled, and there was something almost hungry in his voice, as if violence was the only language left that made sense. Eddard stepped aside so Robert could see the dead guard, the fallen crossbow, the assassin's crumpled shape. "A bolt," Eddard said, "meant for your throat." Robert's eyes narrowed. He looked at the tree trunk where a quarrel still trembled and then at the body of his guard, and the rage in him shifted, focusing like a spear point. "Find me his purse," Robert said. A Stark man knelt, rifled the assassin's belt, and held up a pouch that jingled. The guard spilled its contents into his palm, gold coins stamped with a lion's head, their faces gleaming in firelight like mockery. A murmur ran through the camp. Even men who could not read knew what that meant. Robert's face went still, too still. "Tywin," he said softly. Eddard's jaw clenched. "Tywin," he agreed. Robert's gaze flicked toward the children's guarded ring. Myrcella had pulled Tommen close, her hand pressed over his eyes, but Tommen's sobs leaked through her fingers. Joffrey stood in the shadow of a wagon, watching the scene with an unnerving calm, as if he were studying how men died so he could remember it later. Robert saw Joffrey watching and something ugly tightened in his expression. Not love, not warmth, but the desperate need to find himself in the boy's face and failing. "Bring the queen out," Robert snarled suddenly. Eddard's stomach dropped. "Robert, now," Robert barked. The guards hesitated, then moved toward Cersei's litter. Eddard stepped in fast, catching Robert's arm. "Not tonight," he said, voice low and hard. "Not in fear, not in front of the children." Robert's eyes blazed. "Fear?" he hissed. "They tried to kill me, and they will keep trying," Eddard replied. "Which means we keep our heads. We keep discipline." Robert's breath came in harsh bursts. His gaze snapped back to the lion coins in the guard's palm. He took them and squeezed until the edges bit into his skin. "They buy my death," Robert whispered. "They buy it like a sack of grain." Eddard's voice was quiet. "That is how Tywin has always worked," he said. "And that is why you must not give him what he wants." Robert's mouth twisted. "He wants my head," he growled. "He wants your reputation first," Eddard said. "A dead king is dangerous for him if the realm blames the lions. A dead king is useful if the realm believes the king deserved it." Robert stared at him, and for a heartbeat Eddard thought the king might understand. Then Robert looked away, jaw clenching, as if understanding was just another kind of pain. They buried the dead guard at the edge of camp under frozen earth that resisted the spade. The men worked in silence, breath steaming. When the grave was filled, Robert stood over it and did not speak a prayer. He simply stared down, eyes empty. Eddard watched the trees again, feeling the night press in. The first knife had come in the dark. It would not be the last. Cersei Lannister learned to measure time by men's breathing. The wagon rocked gently as the camp settled again, as fires shrank and voices dropped, as fear became a low hum rather than a shout. Outside, the guards shifted their feet, their armor whispering softly. She heard it all. She pictured it all. She knew where every man stood, because helplessness made the mind sharper or broke it. Cersei had never been built to break. A lantern hung from a hook inside the wagon, its light weak and yellow. Her chains were looped around a heavy iron ring bolted to the floor. The iron bit cold into her wrists, but her hands were steady as she smoothed a scrap of parchment across her knee. A ring lay on the floorboards, gold, heavy, lion-faced. She had taken it from her own finger before Robert could pry it away and hidden it beneath her cloak. Because little things mattered. Little things became keys. She dipped a quill into ink with careful economy. The ink was precious, but words were more precious. She wrote quickly, small and tight, because she had learned that the smallest messages traveled farthest. Folded, hidden, slipped into pockets that men swore were empty. A soft knock came at the wagon's door. "Who is it?" she asked, voice calm, as if she were not chained. The door creaked open a sliver. A guard leaned in, face half-lit. One of the Baratheon men, not a Stark. His eyes flicked to the chains, then away, as if looking too directly might invite her wrath. "My lady," he said quietly. Cersei's mouth curved faintly. "You still call me that," she murmured. "How sweet." The guard swallowed. "The king said." "The king says many things," Cersei interrupted softly. "He says them loudly, so he can hear himself over the laughter." The guard's jaw tightened, and Cersei saw it. Resentment, fear, something that could be turned. Men did not like kings who humiliated them by association. A king who dragged his queen in chains made everyone near him feel dirty. "You heard what happened," the guard said, voice low. Cersei blinked slowly. "An assassin," she said. "How shocking." "They meant him," the guard whispered. "Meant to kill Robert Baratheon." Cersei tilted her head. "And did you?" she asked gently. The guard's eyes flashed. "No." "Then he lives," Cersei said. "For now." The guard hesitated. "They found gold," he said. "Lion gold." Cersei let her eyes widen just enough to look wounded. "They will blame my father," she whispered, as if the thought pained her. The guard's mouth tightened. "They already do." Cersei leaned forward as far as chains allowed, lowering her voice. "Do you believe it?" she asked. The guard stared at her. His eyes were uncertain. Uncertainty was the crack where Cersei placed her knife. "I believe," he said slowly, "that Lord Tywin Lannister does not like being humiliated." Cersei smiled faintly. "No," she agreed. "He does not." She let silence stretch, letting the guard stew in his own thought. Then she spoke again, soft as smoke. "Do you know what Robert Baratheon will do if he believes my father is trying to kill him?" The guard's throat bobbed. "He will. He will do what he always does," Cersei said. "He will smash. And when men smash, they do not always choose the right target. They hit whatever is closest." Her gaze flicked down to her chains. "Sometimes that is a woman. Sometimes that is a child." The guard flinched, and the flinch told her everything. Outside the wagon, a shadow shifted near the wheel, small, sharp. Cersei knew without seeing that it was Joffrey Baratheon. listening like a hungry cat. Cersei's voice softened. "If you had a sister," she murmured, "and she were chained like this, and a king kept her as bait." She let the sentence hang unfinished, so the guard's mind would fill it with his own fear. The guard began. Cersei lifted her bound hands slightly, chains clinking. "I am not asking you to free me," she said. "Not tonight. Not yet." She paused. "I am asking you to carry a message." The guard's eyes darted. "To who?" Cersei's smile sharpened, faint and poisonous. "To a man who can keep the city from tearing itself apart," she whispered. "To a man who understands that Robert Baratheon is no longer fit to hold a crown if he swings hammers in halls and drags children through smoke." She slid the parchment forward, folded tight, the wax seal pressed with the lion ring. "To Peter Baelish." The guard stared at the folded scrap as if it were a snake. "Little finger," he whispered. "Little finger," Cersei agreed. "He likes ladders. He will climb whichever one does not collapse." Her eyes gleamed. "Tell him the lion has not forgotten his debts." The guard's hands trembled slightly as he took the message. "If they catch me," Cersei's voice turned colder. "If they catch you," she whispered, "you will say you were delivering a prayer to the sept for the queen. Men love prayers. They fear them, too." She paused, then added softly, "If you succeed, you will be remembered when the lion returns." The guard swallowed hard, then nodded once, too quickly. He pulled back from the doorway, closing it gently, as if afraid any sound might betray him. Cersei sat back against the wagon wall, chains tight, and let herself breathe once, slow and controlled. Outside, Joffrey's shadow slipped away from the wheel. She smiled in the lantern light, small and secret. Robert Baratheon believed he was dragging her to King's Landing to make her speak. He did not understand that King's Landing would speak for her, if she whispered to the right mouths first. By the time Robert Baratheon was 2 days from the city, King's Landing was already bleeding from the mouth. Rumor moved through the capital like sickness. Fast, invisible, fed by fear and hunger. In taverns, men whispered that the king had gone north and come back a madman. In markets, women hissed that the queen had been kidnapped by wolves. In the streets, boys shouted that the Kingslayer was dead and the gods had finally noticed sin. Flea Bottom boiled first, as it always did, because Flea Bottom lived closest to the truth of kings. Kings meant taxes and soldiers and bodies. A crowd gathered near a crooked sept that stank of damp stone and old incense. They shouted over one another, voices sharp and desperate. Some spat Robert's name like a curse. Others spat Tywin's. Many spat at both because the small folk understood, in their bones, that nobles fought and small folk burned. A man held up a crude wooden token carved like a lion. "The queen is innocent," he yelled. "It's the king who's gone mad." A woman hurled a rotten turnip at him. "Innocent?" she screamed. "She's a whore with a crown." The word ignited the air. Men surged, hands grabbed, someone punched someone else. A boy was trampled, crying until the crowd swallowed the sound. Gold cloaks shoved in, staves raised, faces hard and tired. They hit men's shoulders, men's backs, men's heads. They did not ask questions. Questions were luxuries. Order was what they sold. "Back!" a captain shouted. "Back, you dogs!" The crowd roared, and the roar tasted like hunger. A stone flew, struck a gold cloak's helm with a crack. The man staggered, blood running down his face, and his fellows responded the way soldiers always did, with violence. Staves swung. A man went down, teeth scattering on cobble. A woman screamed and clawed at a gold cloak's face until his hand closed around her hair and slammed her head against a wall. A septon stepped forward, hands raised, voice shaking with fervor. "Peace!" he cried. "Peace in the Seven's name." Someone shoved him. Someone else punched him. His voice broke. Even gods had trouble being heard over men with staves. From beneath a shadowed archway, Varys watched. His silk robes were plain today, darker than usual, as if he were trying to blend into the city rather than float above it. His face was composed in sorrow, but his eyes were sharp, counting, measuring, memorizing. He watched which gold cloaks hit hardest. He watched which ones hesitated. He watched which ones looked like they had already chosen a side. A little bird tugged at his sleeve, a child with dirty cheeks and quick eyes. The child whispered in Varys's ear, and Varys's expression tightened just slightly. "Little finger," Varys murmured, soft enough that it was almost breath. The child nodded and slipped away, swallowed by the crowd. Varys exhaled slowly. He had hoped, perhaps foolishly, that the city might hold itself together until the king returned. But cities were like and under enough pressure they broke. The mob surged again, and gold cloaks pushed harder. Someone drew a knife. Someone else drew another. A bloodstain bloomed on a shirt. A scream rose high and then cut off abruptly. Varys turned away before the worst of it spilled. He moved through alleys and courtyards like a shadow with purpose, heading toward the Red Keep, toward the small council, toward the men who pretended they governed rather than reacted. Behind him, Flea Bottom screamed itself hoarse, and the city's heartbeat quickened into panic. Kings did not need to arrive to cause war. Sometimes the idea of a king arriving was enough. Peter Baelish had always understood that a city was a beast with one true appetite: coin. In a narrow office inside a gold cloak barracks, the air smelled of sweat, old ale, and the sour tang of fear. A single candle burned on the table, its flame trembling whenever someone shifted. Outside, boots thudded in corridors, men barking orders, the city's tension pressing in like heat. Janos Slynt sat behind the table with his hands folded, trying to look like a commander rather than a butcher who had found a uniform. His eyes, however, betrayed him: quick, greedy, restless. Peter Baelish placed a small heap of gold on the table and let it gleam in candlelight. It was not Lannister stamped. It did not need to be. Gold was gold. It spoke all languages. Janos swallowed. "That's a lot of coin," he said, voice thick. Peter smiled as if they were discussing wine. "The city is expensive," he replied. "Order more so." Janos's fingers twitched toward the pile. "What do you want?" he asked. Peter's smile did not change. "I want the gates controlled," he said softly. "I want the city watch to remain flexible." Janos frowned, suspicion fighting greed. Flexible for who? The door opened without a knock. Renly Baratheon stepped in with the easy grace of a man who had never been truly frightened in his life. He wore green velvet and a smile that looked almost warm, almost harmless. Behind that smile was calculation sharp enough to cut. Janos's eyes widened. "My lord," he stammered, half rising. Renly held up a hand. "Sit," he said pleasantly. "We're all friends here, aren't we?" Janos sank back down, sweating. Peter's eyes gleamed. "Lord Renly," he murmured, as if surprised, as if he had not orchestrated the moment. Renly's smile widened. "Littlefinger," he said, and the name sounded like mockery and praise tangled together. His gaze slid to the pile of gold. My, buying the city again." Peter spread his hands. "I merely rent it," he said lightly. "It would be rude to claim ownership." Renly's eyes flicked to Janos. "Captain Slynt," he said smoothly, "you have an important duty soon." Janos licked his lips. "Aye, my lord," he said. "Duty." Renly leaned forward slightly, voice dropping just enough to feel intimate. "My brother returns soon," he said. "King Robert Baratheon. And he returns wounded." Janos's eyes darted. "So I've heard," he said quickly. Renly's smile remained. "When a wounded king returns, the city must not tear itself apart in the streets," he continued. "It must not become a battlefield. The gates must be managed. The crowds must be managed. And certain prisoners must be handled carefully." Janos swallowed hard. "Prisoners," he echoed. Renly's gaze sharpened. "The Queen," he said, and the word was a hook. "Cersei Lannister." Janos's eyes widened. They say she's chained, he whispered. Renly's expression did not change. They say many things, he replied. But if she arrives in chains, the city will riot. Lions will roar, wolves will howl, and men like you will be crushed between them. Janos flinched. He could see it, his own death in the street, not noble, not remembered. Renly's voice softened, almost kind. Unless, he said, you are the man who keeps the peace. Janos's gaze slid to the gold again. Peter Baelish spoke, voice smooth. Captain Slint, he murmured. Peace has a price. Janos's hands tightened together, knuckles white. What do you want me to do? He asked, and the question was already surrender. Renly's smile brightened, as if delighted. When the king arrives, he said, you will open the gates. You will escort him to the Red Keep with honor. And you will ensure that the queen is placed somewhere safe. Safe, Janos echoed, confused. Renly's eyes glittered. Safe from mobs, he said. Safe from northern blades. His voice dropped further. Safe for the realm. Janos swallowed. And the king? He asked. Renly's smile did not falter. The king will be treated with all respect, he said. But if the king behaves rashly, if he threatens the city, then the city watch must be prepared to protect the capital. Janos blinked. From the king, he whispered, stunned by the audacity. Peter Baelish's smile was razor-thin. From chaos, he corrected gently. Janos stared at the gold until his eyes seemed to glaze. Then he reached out slowly, dragging the heap toward himself with shaking fingers, as if afraid the coins might bite. Renly watched him, satisfied. Good, he said softly. You are a practical man, Captain Slint. Practical men survive. Janos nodded, sweat running down his temple. He whispered. Practical. Renly straightened, smoothing his sleeve. One more thing, he said lightly. No surprises at the gate. No heroics. No mistakes. His smile sharpened. Because if you fail, there will be no coin large enough to buy your head back from the crowd. Janos swallowed hard. I won't fail, he whispered. Peter Baelish's eyes gleamed, amused. No, he murmured. You won't. When Renly and Peter left the office, the candle flame seemed to burn steadier, as if relieved. Janos Slint sat alone with his new gold and felt, perhaps for the first time, the true weight of the city he thought he commanded. Outside, King's Landing seethed. And the gates that decided who entered and who died, were now in hands that could be bought. Tywin Lannister did not sleep as men slept. He rested in brief stillnesses, eyes open, mind moving. By the time Gregor Clegane limped into the lantern-lit tent, Tywin had already decided what the Riverlands fires would mean, what the city's riots would mean, what Robert Baratheon's wounded shoulder would mean. Gregor's armor was scraped and dented, black plate marked with mud and blood. A crude bandage wrapped his thigh where the arrow had found a gap. The mountain's face beneath his helm was less monstrous than the stories promised, but it was harder for being real, scarred, heavy-browed, expression empty of anything but appetite. He knelt only because a man had to do something with his bulk in a tent built for smaller bodies. The king bleeds, Gregor said, voice like gravel. Tywin's gaze did not flicker. I know, he replied. Kevin stood over the map, finger tapping the King's Road. They left Riverrun, he said. They ride for King's Landing. Tywin's mouth tightened slightly. Good, he said. Tyrion sat near the tent pole with a cup in hand, watching the scene with eyes too sharp for grief to dull. He had ridden with his father's host out of habit and necessity, but every mile felt like betrayal of something he could not name. Jaime's absence was a hole in the world. Tywin treated it like a missing tool. Gregor shifted, and the bandage at his thigh darkened. The stag hits hard, he said. Tywin's eyes slid to him at last. And you failed, Tywin said flatly. Gregor's jaw worked. Anger flickered. He was used to being feared, not judged. He was there, Gregor rumbled. He came out of the trees like a man who believes violence is a virtue. Tywin finished, unimpressed. He looked back to the map. You drew blood. That is all I required. Kevin's brows furrowed. Father, he said cautiously, if Robert reaches the Red Keep with the Queen in chains, the city may turn against us. Tywin's gaze was cold. If Robert reaches the Red Keep alive, he corrected. Kevin's jaw tightened. You would kill the king, he said, as if the words tasted dangerous. Tywin did not flinch. Robert Baratheon killed my son, he said. Robert Baratheon has taken my daughter. Robert Baratheon is now a liability to the realm's stability. He looked up, eyes sharp. Liabilities are removed. Tyrion's voice cut in, dry and edged. And the realm will applaud? He asked. Tywin's gaze flicked to him. The realm will accept what it is given, Tywin said. Especially if it is told the king died because he was reckless, wounded, unstable. His mouth tightened. A tragic accident on the road. A fever. Poisoned cut. Anything that keeps the blame from settling where it should. Tyrion's laugh was quiet and bitter. Where it should, he echoed. On you. Tywin's expression did not change. On chaos, he said. Chaos is always convenient. Kevin leaned closer to the map. We have men near the city, he said. Gold in the right palms. The city watch, Tywin. And lifted a hand. Peter Baelish will do what Peter Baelish always does, he said. He will serve himself, so we ensure serving himself serves us. His gaze slid to Tyrion. You will go to King's Landing. Tyrion's cup paused mid-lift. Me, he said softly. Tywin's eyes were cold. You will speak to the council, Tywin said. You will present grief. You will present reason. You will present the story we require. His voice hardened. And you will remind them that the realm is in debt. Tyrion swallowed, wine sour in his mouth. And if Robert arrives first? He asked. Tywin's gaze slid back to Gregor. Then we accelerate, he said. Gregor's lips curled in something like anticipation. Kevin's face tightened. Cersei is still in their hands, he said. Tywin's gaze remained steady. Cersei will be freed, he said. Either by law or by force, or by the city itself. His eyes narrowed. And the children will be secured. Tyrion's voice was quiet. Secured for whom? He asked. Tywin's eyes flicked to him, sharp as a knife. For House Lannister, he said. For stability. For the realm. Tyrion wanted to laugh. He wanted to scream. Instead he drank. Tywin turned back to the map and placed his finger on King's Landing. Robert Baratheon thinks the city is his, he said. He forgets the city has always belonged to whoever feeds it, pays it, and frightens it. His mouth tightened. We will remind him. Outside the tent, thousands of men slept with swords close and dreams closer. The host's fires dotted the fields like a constellation of hunger. And in the center of it, Tywin Lannister planned the King's End with the same calm precision he might plan a harvest. The city appeared on the horizon like a bruise on the world. King's Landing was not beautiful from a distance. It was a sprawl of brown roofs and crooked streets pressed up against the hill where the Red Keep perched, its walls pale in the dying light. Smoke rose from 100 chimneys, mixing with the smell of salt and sewage carried by the wind. Even before they reached the gates, Eddard could taste it. Life packed too tightly, desperation simmering. They camped on a rise outside the city where the ground was firmer and the sightlines wider. Fires were kept low. The men spoke in murmurs. Even hardened soldiers looked uneasy, because the city did not feel like a place to march into with a queen in chains and a king with enemies on every side. Robert stood at the edge of camp staring toward the Red Keep, cloak snapping behind him. His bandaged shoulder stiffened his posture. His jaw worked as if he were chewing rage. That is my castle, he muttered. Eddard stood beside him. It is a castle full of knives, he replied. Robert's laugh was harsh. Let them cut, he growled. I'll break their arms. Eddard did not answer, because he could see how badly Robert wanted the world to be simple again. The city would not grant him that mercy. A hooded man approached the camp's edge just after dusk, slipping between watchfires with the smoothness of someone who knew how to avoid attention. Stark guards caught him before he could reach the king. The man raised empty hands, voice low and quick. "For Lord Eddard Stark," he said. Eddard stepped forward, eyes narrowed. "Who sent you?" he asked. The man's mouth twitched as if amused by the question. He did not answer with words. He opened his palm briefly, and a ring glinted plain, but with a tiny, familiar mark cut into the metal. Varys. Eddard's stomach tightened. He took the small scroll offered and tucked it into his glove without breaking the seal yet. "Go," he said quietly. The hooded man vanished back into the dark as if swallowed by the city's breath. Eddard moved away from the fires, toward a patch of shadow between wagons, and broke the seal with careful fingers. The parchment was thin. The ink smelled faintly of perfume, a reminder that Varys's messages always carried a trace of court. The words were spare, urgent. "The city watch is not yours. The gates are bought. Renly Baratheon plans to protect the queen. Peter Baelish counts coins. Do not enter by the main gate. Trust no one who smiles." Eddard read it twice, then folded it and felt the weight of it settle in his gut. He looked toward the road where, in the distance, gold cloaks patrolled in small knots, yellow and black moving like insects. He remembered how easily gold could turn men's loyalty. He remembered, too, how easily desperation could do the same. Behind him, the covered litter shifted. A curtain gap widened for the briefest moment, and Cersei Lannister's eyes met his through the dark. Green, bright, amused. She smiled, faintly, and let the curtain fall again. Eddard's blood chilled. He moved back to Robert, keeping his face steady. "We do not enter tonight," he said. Robert's head snapped toward him. "Why?" he demanded. Eddard held his gaze. "Because the city is restless," he said. "Because the watch may not be loyal. Because men are buying the gates." Robert's eyes narrowed. "Buying?" he snarled. "With my gold." Eddard's voice was low. "With Lannister gold. With Tyrell gold. With whoever thinks the crown is about to fall and wants to be standing where it lands." Robert's mouth twisted. "Renly," he spat. Eddard did not deny it. "We choose our entry," he said. "We choose our ground. We do not let them funnel us like cattle." Robert stared toward the red keep, jaw clenched. For a heartbeat, Eddard saw the old stubbornness rise. Robert wanting to ride straight through the gates and dare the world to stop him. Then Robert's shoulder wound pulled, and pain flickered across his face. Pain did what counsel sometimes could not. It forced him to pause. "Fine," Robert growled. "We go in at dawn. And if any man tries to take my queen from me..." His hand drifted toward the hammer at his saddle, and the threat was so familiar it was almost comforting. Eddard looked at the city again and felt no comfort at all. King's Landing was a pit of snakes, and dawn would drop them into it. Dawn brought no peace. It brought noise. As soon as Robert's column approached the city, the sound reached them, shouts rolling over the walls like waves. The gates were shut, then opened slowly, as if the city itself hesitated to let the king in. The smell hit next. Fish rot, smoke, sweat, shit. King's Landing smelled like too many people pressed too close for too long, and now it smelled like fear on top of it. They chose the main approach anyway because avoiding it would look like weakness, and Robert Baratheon refused to look weak. Eddard rode near the front with Stark men flanking, eyes scanning roofs and windows and the narrow slits in the walls where arrows could wait. The gates yawned open, and a line of gold cloaks stood just inside. Spears down, helmets on, faces hard. At their head stood Janos Slynt, broad-shouldered and sweating despite the cold. His mouth fixed in a grin that looked like something borrowed. He raised a hand. The column slowed. Robert's horse stamped. "Move!" Robert barked. Janos Slynt stepped forward a pace, voice loud enough for the crowd to hear. "Your Grace," he called, bowing shallowly. "The city welcomes you, but there are concerns." Robert's eyes narrowed. "Concerns," he repeated, and the word was already a threat. Janos's grin twitched. "The small folk are restless," he said. "They've heard things. They fear violence. They fear the queen being brought through the streets in." His eyes flicked briefly toward the covered litter. In an unseemly manner, Robert's jaw tightened. "My queen travels as I command," he growled. "Open the way." The crowd pressed closer behind the gold cloaks, faces sharp with hunger for spectacle. Some shouted Robert's name like a prayer. Others shouted it like a curse. A woman screamed, "Whore!" and another screamed, "Mad King!" And the two cries tangled into one ugly chorus. Eddard's hand tightened on his reins. He felt the city's mood the way a man felt ice cracking under his feet. Janos lifted his hands as if calming the crowd. "To prevent riot," he announced loudly, "the City Watch will escort the Queen directly to the Red Keep by a secure route, away from the mob." Robert's head snapped. "No," he said, and the word cracked like a whip. Janos blinked, still grinning. "Your Grace." Robert rode forward a step, towering, voice booming. "You will not touch her," he roared. "She is mine. She goes where I say." The crowd surged at the shout, drawn to it like dogs to blood. Gold cloaks tightened their line, spears angling. A stone flew from somewhere, struck a horse's flank. The horse screamed and reared, nearly throwing its rider. Eddard moved without thinking, riding forward between Robert and Janos, Ice's dark hilt visible at his side like a warning. His voice cut through the noise, low but sharp. "Captain Slint," he said, "your duty is to escort the king, not to negotiate his authority." Janos's eyes flicked to ice, and the grin faltered just a fraction. "My lord he said quickly, "I mean only to keep the peace." Eddard's gaze was cold. "Peace is kept by obeying the king," he said. Janos swallowed. His eyes darted toward the walls, toward the city behind him, toward men unseen who had bought his courage. The moment stretched. Eddard could feel it balancing on a knife edge. One wrong word and the gate became a slaughterhouse. Robert's voice dropped, deadly. "Open the way," he said again. Janos's jaw worked. He glanced at the crowd, at the spears, at Robert's hammer, at Eddard's calm fury. He made a decision that looked like surrender and felt like betrayal. He lifted his hand sharply. "Clear!" he shouted. Gold cloaks shifted, parting. The crowd roared, surging forward until spears shoved them back. Men spit. Women screamed. Someone threw a clod of filth that splattered against a Stark guard's cloak. The column moved through the gate. Eddard kept his eyes up, scanning rooftops. Robert rode stiffly, shoulders tense, as if he expected every window to spit a bolt. The litter rolled behind them, guarded on all sides, and Eddard could feel Cersei's presence like a whisper in his spine. As they passed Janos Slint, Eddard caught the captain's eye for a heartbeat. Janos looked away first. Inside the walls, the streets narrowed and the city swallowed them, loud and stinking and hungry. The Red Keep loomed above, but it did not feel like safety. It felt like the mouth of a beast waiting to close. The Iron Throne did not welcome Robert Baratheon. It merely waited for him, as it waited for all kings, hungry for blood. When Robert sat it again, he did so with a grimness that made the act feel like punishment. The bandage beneath his cloak pulled at his shoulder. The throne's jagged blades caught torchlight like teeth. His warhammer leaned against the steps below, as if even the throne did not trust itself to keep him whole. The court gathered fast, drawn by rumor and instinct. Lords in silk and chainmail filled the hall. Knights murmured behind hands. Servants slipped like shadows. The air smelled of sweat and incense and fear. Eddard stood below the throne steps, shoulders squared, ice at his side. He felt the city's eyes on him, northern wolf in the south's den. He felt their judgment like a weight. Barristan Selmy stood rigid in his white cloak, face unreadable. He had served mad kings and noble ones, and he looked as if he was measuring which Robert would become. Renly Baratheon stood to one side, smiling gently, hands folded as if in prayer. The smile did not reach his eyes. Behind him, courtiers hovered like moths. Peter Baelish lounged with easy confidence near a pillar, as if the throne room were his favorite tavern. Varys stood beside him with his hands tucked into his sleeves, face sorrowful, eyes sharp. Grand Maester Pycelle shuffled in, chain glinting, cheeks pale. He looked like a man who wished ravens had never been invented. Robert's voice cut through the murmurs. "Bring her," he commanded. The doors opened, and Cersei Lannister entered. They had hidden her chains beneath a dark cloak, because men still clung to the illusion of dignity. But the way the guards flanked her, the way the hall held its breath, made the truth plain. Cersei's hair was braided, her head held high, her face composed. She looked less like a prisoner than like a queen walking to her own coronation. A murmur rippled. Some faces showed shock. Some showed satisfaction. Some showed fear. Renly's smile tightened. Cersei's eyes swept the hall and then lifted to Robert. For a heartbeat, something like contempt flickered. Then it smoothed into calm. She inclined her head slightly, as if greeting a husband rather than a captor. "My king," she said, voice smooth. Robert's hand tightened on the armrest. "Do not call me that," he growled. Cersei's mouth curved faintly. "As you wish," she replied. "Husband." The word hit the hall like a slap. Robert leaned forward, eyes blazing. "Jaime Lannister is dead," he said, voice carrying. "He died for treason, for breaking vows, for crawling into my bed with my wife." Gasped. A rustle of silk, a whisper like wind through dry leaves. Barristan's jaw tightened. Pycelle's mouth opened, then closed again like a fish on sand. Cersei did not flinch. "You killed him," she said softly. "Yes." Robert's voice rose. "I did," he snarled. "And I would do it again." He stabbed a finger toward her. "Now you will speak. Y. Or you will tell this court the truth. You will tell them how long. You will tell them whose children they are." The hall went still enough that Eddard could hear his own heartbeat. Renly's smile froze. Peter Baelish's eyes gleamed. Varys looked almost sad. Cersei's eyes glittered green. She let silence stretch, savoring it, because she understood what Robert did not. The court loved silence before a fall. Then she spoke, voice soft and deadly. "You want me to confess," she said, "so you can wash your hands of your own failures." Robert's face contorted. "Answer," he roared. Cersei's gaze slid over the court, over lords who had smiled at her for years, over men who had feared her father's gold. "I will answer the realm," she said, "but not to a man who drags me in chains like a trophy." Robert surged as if to stand, fury exploding. The throne's blades caught his cloak and snagged it, tugging like teeth. He ripped free, breathing hard. Eddard stepped forward, voice low but firm. "This is the king's court," he said. "You will answer." Cersei turned her gaze to him, and her smile sharpened. "Lord Eddard Stark," she said smoothly. "The honorable wolf." She tilted her head. "Tell me, did you counsel him to smash Jaime's skull in your hall? Did you counsel him to drag children through smoke and mud?" Eddard's jaw clenched. He heard the trap in her words. She was not defending herself. She was putting the king on trial. Robert's voice thundered. "You will not speak to him." Cersei lifted a hand slightly, and the guards tensed, as if her gesture itself were a weapon. "I will speak to whomever I choose," she said softly. "Unless you plan to kill me here, too, in front of your court." A murmur ran through the hall. Uneasy, hungry. Men loved the idea of a king slipping into tyranny because it gave them permission to choose sides. Renly's voice slid in, mild as honey. "Brother," he said gently, "the city is already restless. We must be careful." Robert's head snapped toward him, eyes blazing. "Careful," he snarled. "You sound like Ned." Renly's smile remained. "Someone must," he said. Peter Baelish chuckled quietly, as if entertained by the tension. Varys's eyes flicked to him, warning. Robert's breath came hard. He looked at Cersei again. "Say it," he demanded. "Say whose children they are." Cersei's gaze held his, unblinking. For a heartbeat, Eddard thought she might finally speak the truth in full, might tear the realm open with a single sentence. Instead, she smiled. "They are mine," she said, "and they are the realms." Robert's face twisted. "That is not an answer," he hissed. Cersei's voice stayed soft. "It is the only answer that keeps you from murdering children," she replied. The hall shuddered with whispers. Eddard felt cold sweat under his collar. He saw, suddenly, how this would end if it continued like this. Riot outside, division inside, and a king driven into madness by humiliation while his enemies called it justice. Yes, stepped closer to Robert, voice low. "We need proof," he murmured. "We need witnesses. We need—" Robert's eyes were wild. "I have eyes," he snarled. "And they will get you killed," Eddard whispered back. Cersei watched them with an amused tilt to her mouth, as if she could already taste the ending. They moved Robert off the throne before the court could tear him apart with whispers. Varys murmured something about the city's mood. Barristan Selmy suggested rest in the careful tone of a man trying not to insult a king. Renly offered a soothing smile. Peter Baelish offered nothing but watching. Eddard guided Robert through corridors with guards bristling around them, away from the hall's hunger, toward a private chamber where they could breathe without 1,000 eyes weighing every twitch. The room was smaller, warmer, thick with lantern light. A table held wine and bread, courtly comforts offered like bandages. Robert stood over it, hands shaking slightly, jaw clenched so hard his teeth ground. "She won't say it," Robert whispered. "She won't say it because she knows it will end her." Eddard's voice was low. "She won't say it because she wants you to say it," he replied. "She wants you to be the man who condemns children. She wants the realm to hate you for it." Robert's eyes flashed. "Let them hate me," he snarled. "Let them hate me if it means they fear me." Eddard felt a chill. "Fear is not loyalty," he said. Robert grabbed a goblet from the table, the wine dark as blood under lantern light. His hand trembled. He lifted it as if he meant to drink the world into silence. Eddard's instinct screamed, "Robert, wait!" Robert's eyes snapped to him. "Do not," he growled. "Do not tell me what to do." Eddard stepped closer anyway, voice hard. "You were nearly killed on the road," he said. "Tywin's gold is in this city. Renly's smiles are in this city. Every cup is a weapon." Robert's mouth twisted. "So I should die of thirst?" he hissed, goblet still raised. Eddard's gaze flicked around the room. Guards posted, shadows pooled in corners. And there, in one shadow, Cersei Lannister stood under watch, cloak draped around her shoulders, face composed as if she were only waiting for a dance. Her eyes met Eddard's, bright and amused. Eddard's blood went cold. "Set it down," Eddard said to Robert, quieter now. "Please." Robert's jaw worked. He wanted to defy. Defiance was his last comfort. Then a small sound came, glass kissing stone. A vial rolled from beneath the table, tiny, clear, glinting in the lantern light. It came to rest near Robert's boot as if placed there by fate itself. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Eddard stared at it. The room seemed to tighten, all air sucked toward that small piece of glass. Robert's gaze dropped. His face went still, too still. A guard took a step forward, then hesitated, as if afraid to touch it. Eddard bent slowly, scooped the vial up with 2 fingers, held it up to the lantern. A faint residue clung inside, slick, barely visible. Robert's breath came in a harsh burst. "Poison," he whispered, and the word was not surprise. It was confirmation. It was the world proving it was as rotten as Eddard feared. Cersei's smile did not change. In the corner by the curtain, a shadow shifted. Eddard's gaze snapped, and for the briefest moment he saw Joffrey Baratheon's face half hidden. Eyes wide, cold, expectant. Then the curtain fell back into place, and the boy was gone, leaving only the impression of his gaze like a knife left on skin. Robert stared at the goblet in his hand as if it were an enemy. His fingers tightened until the metal rim creaked. "Who?" Robert rasped, voice shaking. "Who dares?" Eddard's mind raced. Tywin, Littlefinger, a gold cloak, a servant bought with coin, a courtier bought with fear. Too many names fit. Too many hands could have placed a vial beneath a table. Cersei's voice drifted from the shadow, soft as silk. "Your city welcomes you," she murmured. Robert turned toward her, eyes blazing with murder. "You," he snarled. Cersei's smile sharpened. "Do not flatter yourself," she said. "I am chained." Her gaze flicked, just briefly, toward the curtain. "There are others with freer hands." Eddard stepped between them, holding the vial like a tiny, damning truth. "No one drinks," he ordered the guards. "No one leaves. Search the room. Search every servant. Seal the doors." The guards moved, suddenly frantic, spears shifting, boots thudding. Robert's breath came hard. He looked at the vial, then at Eddard, and something in his eyes cracked. Fear and rage tangled. A king realizing the world would rather poison him than obey him. "I am not safe," Robert whispered. Eddard's voice was low, grim. "No," he said, "you are not." Outside the chamber, the Red Keep's corridors murmured with unseen movement. Somewhere beyond the walls, King's Landing roared and seethed, hungry for news, hungry for blood. And inside the room, with a poison vial glinting in Eddard Stark's fingers and Cersei Lannister smiling in shadow, Robert Baratheon stood trembling on the edge of a truth far worse than betrayal. He could smash men with a hammer, but he could not smash a city full of knives.